Hello, I'm Dr. Hassan Tohid and I'm here with a very interesting topic, traditional reviews versus systematic review. Stay tuned and we'll talk about the difference. First of all, in order to understand this difference, we need to understand what is a review article. Remember, a review article is, of course, as the name suggests, review of a topic. So how do you do the review? You collect previously published sources or papers and write one paper out of it in easy, simple language for beginners I'm talking about right now. That when you combine information from previously published papers and write one paper from all that information, let's say you combine 20, 30 papers together and write one paper, by combining all of them together, that's a review article. So that's a simple definition of review article, and you actually are reviewing what has been done before. That's why we call it a review article. As the name suggests, a review. Now, systematic review, traditional review, they are the two common types of reviews, but there are actually three main types of reviews. Although there are four, and some people will say there are multiple other types, but I'm talking about the most common ones. Most common ones. Let's start with this. Traditional reviews are also known as narrative review or literature review. That's the first kind of review article, traditional review. It has two more names, narrative review and literature review. Second type is systematic reviews. Systematic reviews. Don't call it systemic review. One of the most commonly made mistakes is some students call it systemic review. It's incorrect. Systematic review. Because it's systematic, and we'll talk about this. Now the third type is meta-analysis, and we are not talking about meta-analysis in this video right now. We're just talking about traditional reviews and systematic review. Of course, there is one more type, scoping review, I know, but I'm not talking about it. Right now we are focusing on traditional versus systematic review. These two are one of most commonly written review articles. Let's begin. What is a traditional review then? What is a traditional review? So remember, traditional review has two more names as I mentioned. You can call it as a narrative review and you can also call it literature review. They are one and the same thing. No more confusion after this, right? So once you know this, now how do you write it? Remember, literature review or traditional review is a review article where you combine papers from previously published papers. And this is what review articles are. So what is the first thing first? You need to have a broad topic. It will have a broad topic. You will have a broad research question. Maybe you don't have a question, you just have an idea. And then you write your review article. And now you don't use any guidelines or any checklist to write a traditional review. The only checklist that is used is SANRA checklist. S-A-N-R-A. SANRA checklist. This is one of the most commonly used nowadays. But even if you don't use it, you can still write a traditional review. There is no compulsion in using a checklist. So now you will write a traditional review like an essay, like a story. That's why we call it narrative review. So once you have a broad topic, now you start adding information from previously published papers and you write it like an essay. Now what about the method and results? Method and results sections are optional in a literature review, the traditional review. They are optional, they are not mandatory. You don't follow any guidelines. What about the quality check? You don't check the quality of the articles you include. Simply just write them down. What about the inclusion-exclusion criteria? You may or you may not, but it doesn't have to be that robust. You may include some inclusion-exclusion criteria, that what kind of studies I will include, what kind of studies I will exclude, but you don't have to. Now, this is how a traditional review is written. Of course, it will have tables and figures, and it will have all the sections of the article, introduction and discussion, and then conclusion and references, and then the abstract, of course. And so you will have all of these, but you will not follow any guidelines, no method and results section. Actually method and results are optional. So you will see some traditional reviews with method and results section. Inclusion exclusion criteria is optional, no guidelines, no quality check, and you write a traditional review. So this is a traditional review or literature review or a narrative review. Now let's talk about the difference with systematic review. What is a systematic review now? Systematic review, as the name suggests, is a system. You are creating a system. That's why we call it a systematic review. Now, what does that mean? Did the literature review did not have the system? Correct, it did not have a system. Because if 10 people, 20 people write a traditional review on the same topic, every paper will be different. Every paper can be different, and it will be different because there are no rules and guidelines. Everyone can write in their own fashion. Anyone can have any idea, and different papers can produce different results. But systematic reviews are a system that, and we are creating such a system that if 10, 20, 100 people follow the same steps that you have mentioned in the system, they will get the same results. That's what a systematic review is. So now what is next? What do you do for systematic review? You follow certain guidelines, certain checklist. What is a checklist? The most famous one, PRISMA. PRISMA checklist. PRISMA stands for Preferred Reporting Items for Systematic Reviews and Meta-Analysis. Yes, it can be used for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. You follow the steps mentioned in the PRISMA checklist and you write a paper, it will become a systematic review. But what are the unique features of systematic review that a traditional review doesn't have? You will follow guidelines, a checklist, PRISMA checklist. There were no guidelines in the traditional review. SANRA was optional, remember? Now, the method and results are mandatory here. Method and results section are mandatory requirements. Now, the next thing is the inclusion-exclusion criteria. It's mandatory. You must have a robust inclusion-exclusion criteria. What kind of studies you will include, what kind of studies you will not include, all of that. So inclusion-exclusion criteria is mandatory. You will mention that in your method section. Now, the next thing is the quality assessment, the quality check, the quality appraisal, the critical appraisal. That's the same thing. All of these are same thing, one and the same thing. Quality check, critical appraisal, quality assessment, critical appraisal, critical assessment. Don't get scared of these names. They are one and the same thing, that actually you are checking the quality of every article that you have included in your paper. So you will have to check the quality. And how do you check quality? You can use any checklist for quality appraisal, or you can find a manual way of checking the quality. We'll discuss that in some other video, but right now just remember that quality appraisal checklists are available. You can use them and they are free of cost on Google. So you can use those checklists depending upon the study design, what kind of study you are checking. And once quality is checked, now you start writing your paper, same way, introduction, method, results, discussion. Now method and results are mandatory, discussion, conclusion, and the references, and then the abstract in the end, and then you decide your title. And remember, systematic review should mention that it is a systematic review in the title, because it is a PRISMA requirement. And make sure multiple times that everything according to PRISMA checklist is taken care of. If you do that, you write the paper this way, you will produce a wonderful systematic review as well. Now, one more difference about the length. Systematic review can be written minimum of 5 papers up to 50 to 70 papers, and can be bigger and longer than expected as well. But minimum 5 papers. But for traditional reviews, minimum 20-25 papers, I would say. So this is how a systematic review and traditional review are differentiated, and this is how they are written. So watch this video again, learn from this video, and now I hope you know how to differentiate between a traditional review and a systematic review. Keep watching, keep learning. Thank you.